When it's time to hang up their boots, these are the fights they'll be remembered for. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 final matches of WWE wrestlers. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we'll be taking a look at some of the greatest curtain calls for now retired WWE wrestlers. Yeah, they may have had matches elsewhere after this point, and some could very well pop up again before we know it, just look at Daniel Bryan, but at this point in time, these are their last matches, and boy are they good uns. Number 10, Christian vs. Sheamus vs. Dolph Ziggler vs. Alberto Del Rio. WWE Raw. Not your traditional finale for a superstar of Christian's caliber, and probably one that'll take you by surprise. But yes, the Intercontinental title #1 contender fatal 4-way between these four fellas was the last in-ring competition for Captain Charisma. It's rare you get a crowd that invested in a throwaway fight, but they managed to pull it off regardless. It's just a bloody shame we never got to see Christian take that shot at the IC title, and an even bigger one that his career ended so quietly. Number 9, Hulk Hogan vs. Randy Orton. SummerSlam 2006. A pretty standard Hogan fare, but a memorable one regardless. This marked the final time Hulkamania ran wild in the WWE. The match played off the interesting, albeit hilarious storyline that saw Orton try to make a move on Hogan's daughter Brooke, before promptly dropping poor Papa Hogan on a car bonnet. Yes, Orton should have absolutely won their match, but good luck convincing the Hulkster of that. Number 8, Edge vs. Alberto Del Rio. Wrestlemania 27. Following up from the biggest Royal Rumble, it seemed like destiny was set to be fulfilled as, let's face it, most of us thought that Del Rio was gonna take it. But in what turned out to be a pleasant surprise, the Rated R superstar managed to pick up the win in his first successful world title defense on a WrestleMania card. It was a great performance by both guys, but sadly, the final one of Edge, who would have to relinquish his title the following show. Number 7, Sting vs. Seth Rollins. Night of Champions 2015. Facing off against the Stinger just minutes after dropping his US title to Big Match John, Seth Rollins this time put his world title on the line. It was quite clear during his very brief WWE run that his best years may have been behind him, but nonetheless, Sting's magnetism and charisma were palpable in this bout. Unfortunately, the match is mostly overshadowed by the fact that it put the Stinger out of commission, but you've got to admit, it wasn't a bad final showing for such a storied career. Number 6, Ricky Steamboat vs. Chris Jericho. Backlash 2009. A match that no one thought we'd ever see, but are certainly glad we did. Steamboat stepped out of retirement to take on Jericho during his legendary heel run. "You still got it" chants echoed around the arena as the crowd stated the bleeding obvious, and these two put on a stellar performance, proving they're two of the greatest pure wrestling talents to ever perform. Few could have stepped out with as much grace as the Dragon. Number 5, Goldberg vs. Brock Lesnar. WrestleMania 33. This one may be a little more divisive than others to appear on the list, since you probably either loved it or hated it. After being BTFO'd countless times by Goldberg, Lesnar took his chance to redeem himself in what hoped to make up for their last WM bout. And that it did, because these two managed to compress a hellacious slugfest into just a few short minutes. It was short, hype, and to the point, and an appropriate way to end Berg's career. Number 4, William Regal vs. Antonio Cesaro. WWE NXT. Anyone who's ever seen Cesaro perform in NXT knows that he's guaranteed to go beast mode. Team that with arguably one of the best technical wrestlers in history, and you've got yourself a classic. Cesaro had been antagonizing Blighty's best to no end. It appeared he had a change of heart and couldn't put the odd fella down. A slow-paced, hard-hitting and grueling show, the matchup ended up being a sort of passing of the torch that broke every heart in the arena. Number 3, Stone Cold Steve Austin vs. The Rock. WrestleMania 19. Can you name a better feud in the history of professional wrestling? Probably not. That's why this was the perfect conclusion to their story. Time and time again, the Great One had been unable to defeat his eternal rival at WrestleMania, so he'd have to dig pretty deep into the heel playbook and pull out some of his dirtiest tricks yet to finally get the job done. And that's precisely what he did, oversold stunners and all, to write the final chapter in the story of the Rattlesnake. Number 2, Ric Flair vs Shawn Michaels, Wrestlemania 24. Talk about poignant. It seemed like the Nature Boy would be wrestling in WWE until the end of time, but all things must indeed come to a close. The man for the job, Shawn Michaels. The two had faced off in some classics in the past, but none quite held the emotional weight of this one. Flair struggled to throw everything he had in his arsenal, but was countered at every turn by the Heartbreak Kid, closing the match with those emphatic words, a kick to the face, and countless tears. Number 1, Shawn Michaels vs The Undertaker, WrestleMania 26. It was time for Shawn to say goodbye, and honestly, who better to step up to the task than the Phenom? This was an amalgamation of their storied rivalry, yet it seemed impossible for the two to top their matchup from the previous year, but they arguably did just about that. Ending with the world's angriest tombstone, this is not just one of the better retirement matches, but one of the very best encounters in WWE history.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo and subscribe for new videos every day.